Okay, this is 4.2. We are going to talk more about graphing quadratic functions. So we're going to sketch a graph of a parabola in standard form and then learn how to convert from standard form to vertex form. So when we talk about standard form, what we're talking about is this y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So in order to find the vertex, we have to do a little bit of work to get it, unlike when it's in vertex form and it's kind of given to us. So to find the x coordinate, we take the opposite of b over 2a. So we take the a and the b from the equation there. Okay, we say opposite of b because if b is negative, we make it positive. So it's not just a negative number, it really is the opposite of whatever b is. To find the y coordinate, we substitute whatever we get for x into the equation. So we do the opposite of b over 2a. Whatever we get for that, we go ahead and we take and we plug it in for x into our equation in standard form to get the y value. Okay, the axis of symmetry is still, it's the x value of the vertex, which is still that opposite b over 2a. And then the y-intercept is when x equals 0. So it's going to be 0, comma, a number. Well, if I plug in 0 for x into the standard form, what's left is just c. Okay, so it's that c value when it's in standard form. If you forget that, you can always just plug in 0 for x and evaluate, and that's going to get you the y-intercept every time. Okay, so let's look at an example. Again, we need to pay attention to what we're finding out. So we're saying, does the graph open up or down? What's the vertex? What's the axis of symmetry? And the y-intercept? Then we're going to graph. So just like before, a lot of different things to identify here. Okay, so let's start with, does this graph open up or down? Well, the a value is 1. Remember, anytime we don't see a number, there's really a 1 there. We just don't have to write it. So this graph opens up. So in order to find the vertex, let's start with the x value. So I'm going to take opposite of b over 2a. So b is, this is b, this is a, this is c. So I'm going to take the opposite of b, so that would be negative 2 over 2a, which is 1. So negative 2 divided by 2 is just negative 1. Then to find the y value, I'm going to take negative 1 and plug it in here. So negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 plus 3, and that gets me 2. So my vertex is negative 1 comma 2. That means my axis of symmetry, x equals negative 1, because it's still just the x value of the vertex. And then my y-intercept is 0, comma 3. Remember, I can plug in 0 for x to evaluate it, or I can just look at that c value, which is 3. Okay, so now that we've figured all that out, we're just going to graph it. So I'm going to start with negative 1, 2. My axis of symmetry is at negative 1. I'm going to draw that in. I'm going to graph my y-intercept, 0, 3. Whatever I do on one side of the axis of symmetry, I need to do on the other. So there's my other point. And then connect the dots. So there's my parabola. Okay, here we have another example. We're going to start with, does the graph open up or down? What's the vertex, axis of symmetry, and the y-intercept? And then we're going to graph it. Okay, so here's A. Whoops. Here's A, here's B, here's C. So A is negative, which means the graph is going to open down. To find the vertex, I have to start with that x value. So I'm going to take the opposite of b, so that's negative 4, over 2 times a, which is negative 1. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. To find the y, I'm going to plug that in. So negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 5. Make sure when you do this first part that I'm doing 2 squared first, which is positive, then I'm applying the negative. So this first part is a negative 4, plus 8 would be positive 4, minus 5 would be negative 1. So my vertex is 2, negative 1. That makes my axis of symmetry x equals 2. And then my y-intercept, again, I'm plugging in 0 for x, and that gives me whatever c is, which is negative 5. Okay, let's look at the graph. So I'm going to plot 2, negative 1. X equals 2 is my axis of symmetry. And then 0, negative 5 is my y-intercept. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So there's my other side, and there's my parabola. All right, so how do we convert from one to the other? So remember, if we have standard form, that's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So the two things we have to look for, the a value stays the same. We have an a in both forms. And so if a is negative 2 in standard form, it's going to be negative 2 in vertex form. And then we need to use x equals negative b over 2a to find the vertex. Okay, so we're going to do what we just did on the last problem, to find the vertex and then plug that into vertex form. If we have vertex form, which is a x minus h squared plus k, all we're going to have to do is to just expand that. So we're going to multiply everything out. When you do this, just be careful because, again, we have this squared in there that we would have to FOIL when we do that. Okay, so we just remember we have to FOIL first if we're expanding from vertex form to standard form. Okay, so let's look at an example. So these are in standard form. We're going to rewrite in vertex form. So let's start with number 3. A, again, sorry, let me do that in a pen. A is 1. It's not written in there. It doesn't need to be, but that's what the value is. So let's note what that is. And then I'm going to find the vertex. So I'm going to do negative b, which is negative 2, over 2a. Negative 2 divided by 2 is just negative 1. Then I'm going to plug that negative 1 in to figure out my y. And that gives me negative 1 squared is 1, plus negative 2. Plus 5 gives me positive 4. So my vertex is negative 1, 4. So if I was going to write this in vertex form, that's a x minus h squared plus k. Remember, this is h, this is k, and here's my a. So now it's just a matter of plugging things in. So I get y equals, a is 1, I don't have to write that. So x minus negative 1 would be plus 1 squared, and then plus 4. So that is my vertex form. Okay, let's look at another one. So again, a is what we're going to identify first. A is negative 2. To find the vertex, we need to use our x equals negative b over 2a. So that would be negative 8 over 2 times negative 2. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is positive 2. The y, then I'm just going to plug that in. So 2 squared is 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, plus 16 is positive 8, plus 3 is 11. So my vertex is 2, 11. So again, that's my h and k, and here's my a. So I get y equals negative 2. I have to write it in this time because it's not 1. X minus h, which is 2 squared, plus k, which is 11. There's my vertex form.